Hello there, it's Mr. Hutchinson here talking from inside your computer. Anyway, today's topic is gender, and we're looking at gender as how that can affect people's participation in physical activity and sport. Now, there are three things we need to consider. We're looking at the main differences between males and females. We're then looking at the physical and metabolic and hormonal differences between the sexes, and then considering the allowances made in view of these differences and because of the effects they have. That's basically saying because of those differences in hormonal and metabolic rates, etc., how does sport tailor to those needs? So really simply, the physical differences are pretty obvious. We see it every day. It wouldn't be very fair for a man to be competing against a woman in a rugby game. Why? Now, firstly, because of the physical shape. Men tend to be stronger, they have more power in their bodies, and that means that they have an unfair advantage that they can take into that sporting situation. They have different physiques, and you tend to find that men will have wider shoulders, slimmer waist, whereas women have wider hips for childbirth, and obviously all those little things that they are tailored into them as a evolutionary situation. They also, this is women, have a smaller set of lungs because of that body shape, which means that their oxygen capacity is far less. Now that can be translated into stamina or aerobic endurance, and how we actually use that oxygen intake in events. So for example, this is evident that the men's 800 and 1500 metre records are far quicker than the women's 8 and 1500 metres records, because they can get on more oxygen and therefore produce more energy for our muscles to propel us around the track. Women have less muscle mass, so therefore they aren't able to exert the power from their muscles, and they have very much different areas in terms of menstruation, etc., that mean that they can't necessarily take part in activities as well during their periods. Okay, this said, that doesn't mean that females are necessarily the weaker sex. There's a perception that they are the weak sex, but this isn't necessarily true. What it means is that they don't have a level playing field. And until recently, the 1960s, there was a real perception that women couldn't do it. And it was only in the 1960s that women were able to actually do some of the events that were taking part in the Olympics. For example, something like the 800 and 1500 metres wasn't seen as being particularly female, and therefore they weren't able to do it. That obviously has really changed for the better, and it means that we have a greater equality within our sporting society. However, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that women are weaker. For example, you tend to find that the more sporting activities where women are better than men are things like gymnastics, because they have a greater level of flexibility, and horse riding, where they also are able to compete on a level playing field. This means that they are able to take part and do all the things that men can do in a very, very, very similar event. And it obviously means that there's nothing stopping them taking part as well. Right, I'm going to finish there. What we need to do is finish off by reading the chapters on pages 14 and 15 in your textbook. Have a look at the differences and use your key word sheet to start defining some of those areas that we talked about, namely physique, metabolic rates, power, maximal strength, and then any other areas that you could think of. I'll be checking your keyword sheets and the work that you've got when I return. Good luck!